Good afternoon. Thank you for letting me speak here and share my personal story and my perspectives. My name is Avi Levine, and I'm a junior at UC Berkeley, majoring in political economy. I'm a student who identifies as a Jewish Zionist. As a result of my identity and involvement in on-campus activism, I've been labeled as a, quote, ZZ, shorthand for Zionist Nazi, a, quote, radical right-winger, a, quote, white supremacist crying about my white privilege, among other things. To say that this sort of name-calling is grotesque would be an understatement. Let me tell you why this hateful generalization is particularly inaccurate in my case. Not only am I not a white supremacist, I'm a first-generation Mexican-American student. I grew up in a Mexican community in San Diego, speaking Spanish with my family, Spanish with the vast majority of my friends, celebrating Mexican culture as an integral part of my identity. However, I'm placed on campus in the same box of privileged white students as the rest of my Jewish friends. This includes my Persian Jewish friends, whose parents were expelled from Iran during the revolution only because they were Jewish. My Russian Jewish friends who were not allowed to practice their Judaism in the Soviet Union. My Iraqi Jewish friends whose grandparents and parents had to flee the country from persecution. And my family, who fled antisemitism in Eastern Europe, ended up in Mexico City, and 2 generations later moved to America for better economic opportunity and a safer place to raise their children. The Jewish community is an incredibly diverse community and not deserving in the least of these sorts of generalizations. This is because our families have been tossed around the world, expelled from country to country over the last thousands of years. We've been exposed to all sorts of antisemitism, bigotry, and intolerance. The only place that has truly been safe for Jews has been Israel. This reality is the basis of Zionism, and this is the reason I argue for what I do. It is simply about wanting a place to practice our Judaism safely, and having a place in our historic homeland where we identify. In my 3 years at Cal, I've noticed that North American college campuses haven't even come as a close substitute to a safe place to practice our Judaism. This is reflected in our negative campus climate. In 2011, the President's Advisory Council on Campus Climate, Culture, and Inclusion, put together by former UC President Mark Rudolph, traveled to 6 of the UCs and put together a report for campus climate for Jewish students, in which they stated, quote, Jewish students are confronting significant and difficult climate issues as a result of activities on campus which focus specifically on Israel. So the question is, how do you define these climate problems? I would argue that campus climate is a reflection of whether or not students feel comfortable on their campus being themselves and expressing their true identity and views. In order to maintain that positive campus climate, all students need to be able to practice their right to free speech without being met with hostility every time they choose to do so. Free speech is one of the most important factors of full academic freedom. It's one of the pillars of our society and academic democracy. As academic institutions, our university should absolutely be standing strongly to allow students and faculty to explore any subject they might be interested in. But in doing so, they must also practice their free speech to condemn hate speech. They must also stand as strong leadership against bullying other students from studying subjects that they might be interested in. It is true, many of these negative issues, anti-Semitic slurs, and hostility are directed mainly at students who have gotten involved. The average Jewish student does not face these things on a daily basis. However, this reality intimidates many Jewish students from getting involved in doing something other than just pursuing their studies. In 2011, this same report, produced by President Rudolph's Advisory Council, states, quote, students involved with Jewish organizations which support Israel or which do not denounce Israel reported their perception of various overtures to outside organizations have been rejected. As acknowledged by the Office of the President of the University of California System, the fact that we support the Jewish state bars us from membership in many campus groups completely unrelated to Israel. To be clear, this is not a matter of policy. However, it's a result of campus tension and disrespectful social interactions. This is the trade-off many Jewish students have to consider when they decide what will I get involved in my 4 years in college. Will I get involved with my culture, my identity, and subject myself to intimidation and harassment? Or will I pursue some other passion? Will it be environmentalism, sports, other forms of civil rights, professional groups, whatever else it may be? My particular story, as a Mexican American, my freshman year I started trying to get involved in the Latino Business Student Association, and I never fully felt comfortable. I was met with stares, I was met with intimidation. One of my best friends was the president at the time, my friend from high school. I never felt comfortable in this organization. And this is a result of the social culture that we've created, that we've allowed to be created. And what we need is strong leadership from student level, administration, and state officials to condemn this sort of social interaction, to condemn this sort of hate speech. Just because someone is allowed to say something doesn't mean that we need to tacitly endorse it. And that's what we need from our leadership. We need to be able to, when there's a hateful divestment resolution that's labeling me as a Zionist Nazi when my grandfather has a number tattooed on his arm, to say that this is not okay. That student has every right to say what they want, but it's not acceptable, and we don't stand by it. That's what we need from our administration. I commend all of you for taking steps in the right direction. I commend President Udall for putting together his advisory council. But I feel like we've had many meetings like this in which we have these conversations and we're heard, and it's not turned into true action. Some of the findings and recommendations from President Udall's advisory council were that the UC should review its policies on university sponsorship and neutrality. This has not yet happened. As you can see from an event that happened just yesterday, less than 24 hours ago on the UC Berkeley campus, sponsored by 3 academic departments, the Gender and Race Center, the English department, and the Sociology department, in which they hosted a speaker who said, Israel might be behind the JFK assassination. They said Nazism and Zionism are very similar in that both want Jews out of Europe. And they also said that there are no liberal Zionists left if you know one documented for historical purposes. These are quotes from the speaker yesterday, sponsored by 3 academic departments of the University of California, Berkeley. Just because a student group can bring this person doesn't mean our university needs to endorse it, doesn't mean our university needs to sponsor it, it doesn't mean our university needs to stand by it. The second recommendation was the UC should adopt the hate speech-free campus policy. I'm still being called a Zionist Nazi. I haven't seen anything happen. The third major one was the UC should develop cultural competency training around principles of the community for all communities, not just Jewish students. I still have not seen any major developments. So I would really hope that this conversation can help foster some action, and that we can help in any way we can, and take positive steps towards improving this campus climate, and towards improving and making a society and a situation on campus where all students feel accepted and welcome to say what they feel without being met with hate.
Thank you very much. Okay.